we go as we look at these again. We're going to look at these 5 passages and really understand what God's talking about here. So let's go verse 14. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can such faith save him? So that's the main question that's being asked. In other words, can we be saved by faith alone? Is it enough just to say, I believe in Messiah and that's it? And people will tell you that, right? Now, I will tell you, I had a lot of people ask questions on Facebook and on our live chat, because when we talked about faith without works, right, you need the works. And they all gave the example of who? The man on the cross, right? What works did he do? That was the question. And in fact, even one of our members in our new members class asked that question. And before he could even had to say anything, he already knew the answer. Because see, even the man on that cross gave works. What was his works? He proclaimed his faith in God, right? He proclaimed to all those around that he was the living God. That was a pretty bold statement at his deathbed. Matter of fact, you could even say maybe that's what moved that Roman soldier to say, look, he is the Messiah. Now, does that mean if someone dies at the last moment or times that they can't do works, they're not going to heaven? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the people who are able to do it. You know, those people who are dying on their deathbed and give their life to the Lord, guess what? You're going to see them in heaven. That's not a question. Matter of fact, for some people, that might be the best way to do it, is right at the end, right? They might not have the big screen TV in their room, but they're in heaven. Right? They might not be at the front of the line, but they're in. You know, I know some people that said, oh, they don't care where they are in the line, they just want to get in. Well, I want to be in the front of the line. I don't know about you. I do not like waiting on lines. I love going to Disney, and I love the fast passes. Right? You just go in and say, here it is, I'm ready to go, right? You go right up in front. When your time is ready, that's what you want to be, right? I want the fast pass in heaven. Get to see all the characters I want to see, right? So we understand that God is calling us and has a point to what's happening. And so we're not talking about those people, but those who are able to show their faith, to live out God's word. Is it enough just to say, I believe? And I don't believe that is enough. And some will question that, and even the scripture, it says that at that day, people will come up and say, Lord, I saved many in your name. And what will he say to them? Be gone, I do not know who you are. How could that be? Because it's not enough just to say you believe. You got to produce the fruit. So that's really what we're talking about here, what we see what's going on, right? So in verse 15, here's the first example. Verses 15 through 17 gives us our first illustration. And this is of the destitute believer, right? He says, if a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, go in shalom, right? Go in peace. And keep warm and well fed. But you do not give them what their body needs. What good is that? Right? In other words, we can't, if we see a brother and, right, this is a brother and sister in the Lord, right? This is someone you know. We're not talking about that person on the street that may or may not be, a homeless person, or you don't know, but this is someone you know. And they get down on their luck, right? If things happen, does that not happen to all of us? Right? What are we as fellow brothers and sisters supposed to do? Oh, I'm sorry. Right? As you walk out with your nice new warm coat and you had put your old coat up in the closet because maybe one day in the near future you might need that one again, right? But what happens if the person doesn't have anything, right? We're not just to pat them on the back and, oh, I'll pray for you. What are we supposed to do? We got to produce, right? Our faith produces work. And that work produces God's fruit. Right? We can have our faith, but if we don't show it, if we don't put it into action, we don't produce fruit. So God's calling us to help our brothers and sisters in need. Right? We need to make sure that we just don't turn the other cheek. Right? Walk away. God's calling us. It gives us a great example of what we're to do to help our brothers and sisters. And not only comfort them, but you know what? To help them so that they can succeed. It's good to give advice, right? To be that helping hand. To show them, to lift them up, to give them the encouragement they need to know that they can get through it. And you know what? Sometimes they need to know you've been there as well. Right? We've all been down on our luck. It's the ones who have their faith in God that get through it in the right attitude. Amen? Amen. True faith loves and cares and is compassionate and reaches out to help those who God brings before us who are needy. We need to think of creative ways to make those who are needy among us self-supporting. Again, it's that old saying, feed a person for a day, give them a fish for a day and they're fed, right? But teach them how to fish and they'll be fed for a lifetime. We can use our skills and what we've learned to help others as well. So that's one of the examples of what we're not to do, right? We're not just to kind of turn the other cheek and say, oh, well, we're praying for you. That's great, right? But also put it in action. Verse 18, we're going to look at another example. This is an example of two men that are kind of full of themselves. And James actually pictures this, but if you notice, only one man is speaking as we go through this. It says, but if someone will say, you have faith and I have works, show me your faith without works, and I will show you faith by my works, right? The two arguments. Is faith all we need, or is work all we need? And again, the answer is obvious. We need to make sure that we do what God is calling us to do. One without the other is only part of the picture. We have to understand what God is calling us to do. The imaginary man has faith and believes that he will be saved by faith, that God will accept him because he believes in Yeshua, even if he fails to live for him. See, we're not just to have faith, we're to live for God. Amen. Right? We're to show the world he is God. That's a big undertaking, isn't it? Because the world doesn't want to see it, does it? The world wants to go have fun and do what it wants to do, right? But we need to be called into action. We can't just sit there and do nothing. We have to show our faith and live for God. We need to believe that because of our faith in God, that he will take him, then the person who is like that, who just believes that his faith in God will take him into heaven, I think is going to have a big surprise, aren't they? Because that's not enough. We want God to know us for who we are and for what we've done for him. We need to understand what's going on. Jacob here really pulls no punches when he talks about this. that it's not just a matter of faith or works, but it's a combination of both. To say and profess faith alone will not save a person, and to follow works and to follow works to be acceptable to God will not save him either, right? We just can't do, you'll see people that will, I'll give to the poor, so that makes, I'll be okay. God will take me in. Like I said, I'm developing that app. I'm going to make millions. It's the meter. It'll come out right before the high holy days, right? And it'll show you right where you are. You can, for 99 cents, that's like 2 good deeds, right? We're going to have like a bulk good deed rate because there's some bad people out there, right? And you can build up your good deeds. But that's not enough. We need to make sure we understand what God is calling us to do. James handles both of these men's arrogance with one clear statement. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. We need to show the world he is God. We can't be afraid. We can't be ashamed. A person who truly believes in Yeshua works for him. He follows and lives for him. That's the key word, living for him. A person who only professes Yeshua lives for himself, going about doing what he wants, when he wants, and professes to, even though he professes to be a believer, but he lives for himself. It's that selfishness, right? It's that me generation. It's all about me. No, it's all about him. And that's what we need to focus in on. The person who lives for himself knows nothing of the life of Messiah, of the sacrificial giving and living that our Messiah did for us and demands of us. Yeshua said to show him your faith. What did he say? Take up his cross and what? Follow him. We need to take up our cross and follow him. In other words, we need to walk the walk. We need to follow in what's going on. Verses 19 and 20 give us another example of the religious type person. It says, you believe that God is one. You do well. The demons also believe and what? Shudder. But do you want to know, do you want to know, you empty person, that faith without works is what? Dead. Again, he brings this up. Faith without works is dead, right? There are people out there that say, oh yeah, I believe in Yeshua. Well, guess what? The demons say the same thing, don't they? They even call it, they know he's the Son of God. Right, I do that voice. It's like the Vader voice. Right? Every time the demons talk, they talk like this. Son of Man, right? We have to understand that the demons realize he's Messiah. But that won't get them into heaven, will it? It's not just enough to believe. This is the point that James is trying to get across. It has to be something that comes from where? Our heart. There's a lot of people that have the head knowledge of Messiah, but don't have the heart knowledge. And God wants the heart. Because the head can logically figure things out, right? I like Spock. He's very logical, right? 1 + 1 = what? 2, unless you're in new math, and then it could equal something else, right? Right? We need to be logical, but that all logic and no heart leaves you empty. Right? We need to have that heart in there to give us the understanding of what God is calling us to do. Again, even the devils and evil spirits, they believed in God and knew that God exists. They even believed in the deity of Messiah. But that will not save them. That's not enough. The demons are not saved. Their belief has not affected their lives and behavior at all. When we accept Yeshua as our Messiah, we should see changes in our lives. You know, I told you this story before. Before I was a believer, man, my mouth was that of a sailor. Right? I used to cuss all the time. One of my favorite cuss words was JC. I wasn't praising him, that was for sure. I tell you right now. I stubbed my toe. The first words out of my mouth was Jesus. But that wasn't to praise him. It was a cuss word to me. And then I remember one day I was driving and I looked at Judy and I said, I'm not cussing anymore. God started working on me because I believed in him and started to walk the walk. And he started to mold me. Each one of you has similar stories of how God changed you in your life. If you don't, then maybe you just have head knowledge and not heart knowledge. Maybe you got to let it go and need to drop 18 inches. That 18 inches is like the Grand Canyon for some people. They can't go across it. But you got to let it go in. You got to let it seep in and understand what's going on, because God is calling us to be more than just followers. More than just word of mouth. A lot of people can talk faith. Few people can walk the faith. God wants us to walk in his faith. To do what he did. To live for him. You know, when you hear of people who give their lives for their faith, over in the Middle East, right? Guess what? It's going to be happening here in the USA pretty soon. It's already starting to happen. What's going to happen if you're in a mall one day and terrorists come in and put a gun to your head and say, do you believe in God? It happened at Columbine. And when the one said yes and they shot him, and then they looked to another one who just saw it and asked the same question, what would your answer be? That next person gave the same answer and went to be with the Lord. But they had faith and they had works, because their faith alone wouldn't have put them in that position. They wouldn't have been willing to sit there and say, I have faith that I know where I'm going. That I know there's a God that loves me. And even though you might take my life right here, I'm going to have life in eternity with him. That is works. That's understanding what God is calling us to do. Bringing him in to the presence of the Lord. I love the next section, verses 21 through 24. It's the key part of the message, many believe. I actually think it's the following two verses after that, and we will get there. But this next section talks about Abraham, right? The father of a nation. The father and where faith in God begins, right? He didn't have any books, did he? And he is called righteous before God. Wasn't Abraham, our father, proven righteous by works when he offered up Isaac, his son, on the altar? Now think about this. We've talked about this. Isaac saw his father's faith. He saw the works that he did. Isaac understood who God was by his father. And on that day, we're going to be talking about it in just a few weeks, when they started to walk. And how old was Isaac at the time? In his 30s, right? Some people have the image of him being a little kid, right? How old was Abraham at the time? old. Real old, right? Isaac was carrying wood. He was buff, right? Could Isaac take his father down? Absolutely, right? Wouldn't have been a fight. But yet, through the whole thing, because Isaac knew his father's faith, Isaac trusted and believed in God. It's a beautiful picture that we see how it all comes together. But these verses causes great problems for some people, for it seems that they want to say that Abraham offered up Isaac in obedience to God's instructions and he was justified. So we're going to look at that as we continue to read here. Verse 22. You see that faith worked together with his works, and by his works faith was made what? Complete. Right? It was complete. In fact, we know for a fact that Abraham was considered righteous by God years before. Matter of fact, over almost 30 years before, he sat there and brought Isaac up on the altar. He was declared in Genesis 15:6. It says, Abraham believed God, and it was and put it unto him as righteousness. So he already was considered righteous by God. But what he did at that vital moment, the sacrifice of his son, willingness to go up there and do it, put him in a situation where he was able to show that he completely believed in Messiah. That's what that word meant. It was made complete. In other words, this was his it is finished moment. There was no question after this that did Abraham believe in God, because he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And you know what? God used that exact picture to show the world that he loved us so much that not only did he put his son on the altar, he could have taken him off the cross, right? But he allowed him to experience death and raised him again so that we can have a relationship with God. He used this very instant to show us that he in truly fact loves us and gives us that special place for him. We see here exactly what's going on as we continue to read. I want to finish up these two verses. The scripture was fulfilled that says, and Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called what? God's friend. How many of you are God's friend? We want to say that, right? I want to be God's friend. I want to be his BFF. But we have to then be like Abraham, don't we? We have to be able to continue to do. You see that a man is what? Proved righteous by what? Works, and not by what? Faith alone. How do we become God's BFF? By our works. We have the faith. We now need to live for God. That's what he's calling us to do. He's calling us to go in and really live for what God wants us to do. You know, again, people would read this scripture. They don't understand it. They think that it causes great problems for some people, for it seems to say that Abraham offered up Isaac in obedience to God's instructions and he was justified. That is, that Abraham was justified by works. But what James is saying is that Abraham proved that he was justified by his works. James says Abraham's faith worked with and cooperated with God by his works. We need to show the world that we love God and are willing to follow him. are willing to live our lives for him. In other words, his faith or our faith was acted out and proven by his works. We need to prove to the world we believe in God. America was founded on those simple issues. We were founded as a nation under God. A nation that came from different walks of life and could show the world that God exists. And you know what? We didn't have a perfect example. Our nation made stumbles across the way. But you know what? We continued to grow. We continued to seek God's presence. And today, we can sit in a congregation from all walks of life, and all are equal in each other's eyes. That's what God is calling us to do. To show the world that he is God. Abraham's faith was proven, shown to be a complete faith. A true faith and a living faith works. It completes and finishes its course. Regular faith does not do that, and it leads to death. God wants us to be considered righteous for him. We need to understand God's plan. Abraham offered up Isaac, and he was proven by his faith. In fact, there is not a chance that Abraham would have ever offered up Isaac unless he already believed in God. Do you understand that? There is no way you can sit here and say that unless he already believed, he would have offered up his son. He already knew that God was going to provide. He already knew because what? God made a promise to him that through this child, a nation would be born. He knew that, and it's funny, you can read all these things from the rabbis and the commentaries, and they'll give you all these, mishmash theories and all that. And you know what? I kind of laugh at them because the reason why they don't get it, and these are some great scholars, is because they don't have God in their heart. See, they try to justify things because they don't understand God's full picture. I've read the story from this rabbi and that rabbi, how they try to justify it all. They say that Sarah was so heartbroken, that she died because of what happened, thinking that Isaac was killed. Sarah's faith was just as strong as Abraham's. Sure, she laughed at it one time, but that was it. She learned her lesson, didn't she? And like I always said, the one who had the most faith of all that family was Isaac. Abraham knew he was coming down the mountain. But you know what? Isaac did too. Because he knew that what the promise that was made to his father, and he knew that God was a God who keeps his word. Faith only is dead, it's inactive, and it's worthless. True faith is a living and active faith, a faith that proves itself by living for the Lord and obeying him. It's interesting. James could have finished right here. Would have been a powerful message, right? But he adds 2 more verses. Verse 25. And likewise was who? Rahab, the prostitute, also proved righteous by what? Works, when she welcomed the messenger and sent them out another way. For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. Why did he add Rahab to this discussion? Why did he not just leave it at Abraham, the most righteous of people, right? Who was he talking to? He was talking primarily to Jews, right? And see, to a Jewish person, Abraham's pretty big, right? Can't get much higher than him. But a prostitute is the lowest of the low. Right? So what is he showing us here? He's showing us it doesn't matter if you're king of the world or the lowest in society. By your faith in God and by your works, you can be saved. You're equal in God's eyes. And God loves you just as much. Judy and I, Natalie and I were coming in this morning. We were listening to the radio. And it was talking about a comment that Trump made. And that shouldn't surprise any of you because any comment that Trump makes is on the news, right? But it was dealing with guns, right? And I think Trump made the comment that Hillary should give up, her Secret Service. They shouldn't have any weapons, right? If you want to get rid of the guns, right? And it was Geraldo Rivera and one of the weekend hosts, and there was a big argument because Geraldo was saying that how ludicrous, she was, she's more important. She was the Secretary of State and all this, that she deserves to have protection. And his comment was, the chances are that ISIS will go after him. And the other guy said, wait a second, you're telling me that she's more important than my daughter? That I can't protect my own child? And Geraldo's response was, but ISIS won't go after him. Your child, you're nothing to them. And I remember looking at Natalie and saying, boy, he's missing the news, hasn't he? Because you know what? ISIS doesn't go after the presidents. They're going after civilians, right? They're going after Christians. We need to be able to protect ourselves because you know what? The world isn't good right now. But the best protection also isn't necessarily having a gun. The best protection is having faith in God. That's what gets us through. Amen? She was saved because of her faith, and her works brought us into the promised land. Think about it. What if she hadn't done that? What if she didn't protect them? And they got caught. And they never went back to the tribes. They were never able to give the message that God had promised them. What was Joseph's statement? If God is with us, who can be against us? That's what we need to stand on. Because you know what? If God is with us, guess what? We can take walls down with a shofar. Right? We can make the waters part and the dry land come out. Because God is with us. That's the message. We need to now go do our part. I want everyone to bow your head and close your eyes. I want to ask you out there, those of you watching online, watching on Facebook, Apple TV, YouTube, Roku. Maybe you're watching it live, maybe you're watching it at another time. Doesn't matter. God is ready for you right now. If you're ready to say yes to him, not just in the head, but truly in your heart, all you need to do is say a simple prayer. If you're watching online, you can contact us on the address that you see. And wherever you are around the world, we will pray with you that prayer of salvation. But if you're here right now in the congregation and you're ready to say yes to him, or maybe you've known him for a while but it hasn't been in your heart, all you need to do is raise your hand now and pray that prayer. Is there anyone? Anyone at all? Anyone at all? Then, Abba, Father, we just come before you right now. Lord, don't let us be just a person who talks about you, but let us be a person who acts for you, who can show the world that you are God. Lord, give us the strength we need. We ask this in your Son, Yeshua's precious name. And everyone said...